Individu yang akan berkongsikan titipan istimewa sejarah Fakulti Perubatan Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia ibarat sirih pulang ke gagang, laksana coretan sedia dikenang. Untuk itu dipersilakan ke pentas untuk bersama yang bahagia dan moderator Pengarang bersama buku A Brief History of the Faculty of Medicine Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia yang berbahagia Dato Mahmud Muhammad Noor, mantan Dekan Fakulti Perubatan UKM dan juga pakar perunding bedah pediatri. Dan turut bersama ke pentas yang berbahagia Profesor Dr. Dayang, Anita, Abdul Aziz, Pengarah Pusat Kepimpinan Wanita Tun Fatimah Hashim Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. Akan digantang 3 gantang, akan disukat 3 sukat bila dibentang bertambah panjang, baik disimpul supaya singkat. Untuk bersama-sama di atas pentas sebagai Dato bagi mengupas khazanah Fakulti Perubatan juga merupakan individu yang tidak kurang hebat kesarjanaannya, merupakan seorang pakar perunding kanan bedah pediatrik. Ini sentiasa mendukung usaha guru-gurunya dan juga pendidik-pendidik di Fakulti Perubatan yang lahir dari Fakulti Perubatan untuk meletakkan nama Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia terbaik di mata dunia. Mana tumpahnya kuah kalau tidak kenasi, bagaimana secantiknya adunan pasti secantik acuan. Untuk itu, Majlis sekali lagi mempersilakan yang berbahagia dan tim moderator untuk memulakan sesi bedah buku yang kedua. Dipersilakan.
Assalamualaikum Dato dan Prof Dayang. Okey, tajuk buku yang ditulis oleh Datuk Mahmud dan Prof Dayang ialah A Brief History of the Faculty of Medicine Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. Okay, I'll begin with this. We always start from inspiration. What inspired both of you to write a brief history of the Faculty of Medicine?
With your permission, I would just like to say something about Dato Amir Abbas.
Yes, sure. Yes,
okay.
No problem.
I first met Dato Dr. Amir Abbas when my uncle, who was on leave from University of Singapore, went to a small kedai in Kuala Kangsar, and he was then selling songkok. I think you remember that. I was a teenager, and then in 1962 to 1964, Dato Amir Abbas was a medical officer in Kuala Kangsar. I was a student of the Malay College from 1955 to 1964. So I was 10 years in Kuala Kangsar. So it came as a big surprise to see that a person who sold songkok was a medical officer in District Hospital Kuala Kangsar. And I went to see him for treatment, and he gave me injection. So I was very inspired, that he was the first Malay doctor that I met ever. Those days, the doctors were mainly Indians, either local expatriates or orang putih, right? White man. So I was very inspired, and I decided to do medicine. Of course, there are other things that made me want to do medicine, and what was more surprising was that in 1972, I graduated in 1970 from University of Malay. In 1972, I had a call from the Director General of Health to say that I must come for an interview in Pantai, Kuala Lumpur. And there he was interviewing me for a post of a trainee lecturer in 1972. It was such a big surprise. So thank you, Dr. Amir, for taking me in as a trainee lecturer, and I was very pleased that I managed to get my fellowship in surgery in 1975, and I had to come back, and that I was made to be the head of Department of Surgery, to start the Department of Surgery, when I was such a raw person with a fellowship in surgery. So thank you, Dr. Amir, for taking me into the faculty. Of course, I was interviewed by Dr. Ismail, Abdul Majid Ismail, and the Vice Chancellor at that time, Dr. Arifin Marzuki. Just a little bit of a background about Dr. Amir. Yes. Yeah?
One gem knows another.
Well, it's just sheer coincidence. So that was. So when I was appointed head, and all in the history, of the book that's written. And what inspired me to write the book is that I've been collecting data over the years because I became a professor and the dean, and so had a lot of information about what's going on in the faculty and all the problems that we've had in the hospital, Kuala Lumpur. So I thought that someday I might write to jot down about the history. So I had all the data, and then also when Professor Ismail Saad was the dean, he collected some data with the help of Cik Kalis at that time. So in the booklet about the statistics of the intake of students and who are there, how many graduates, and so I happened to have a look at the book. So sometimes around the year about 2004 or so, when UKM moved from HKL to this campus, and it was developing. And what you can see now in the book that was printed is the picture of the university hospital right now. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people who have not been students, like the Thomas Razak and some of them, will not know how we came about to be what we are. And we were not here. We were in the General Hospital Kuala Lumpur. And there was absolutely nothing. And at that time, Dato Amir Abbas had no office. His house was his office, and he moved from house to house. That was the dean's office. So we had a very humble beginning, and we were even unsure of whether we can succeed or not in our quest to develop more male doctors. But you look at the book, the date is from 1970 onwards, right? It's a very significant date because it's just a year after the May 69, the bloodbath incident, which I was involved in, and that was the time when the Malay leaders felt that it's about time we expedite the development of UKM as university to be followed by the medical faculty. That was in 1972. So I have all those records of the development of the faculty, and plus, Dato Amir Abbas, he had this report called the Amir Abbas Report on the development of the faculty and his vision of developing the faculty. So with all those documents, I felt that one day, we will be able to write something about the UKM. So those people who are here and have never seen UKM there will understand the challenges that we've gone through and the successes and the immense contribution of UKM in the medical and health services as well as in other areas of endeavor in higher education.
Right. Thank you, Dato. So, Prof. Dayang, so how was this triggered? How did you collaborate with Dato on this book?
Dato Mahmud, saya minta permission untuk menjawab dalam bahasa Melayu.
Ya.
Okay. Macam mana nak cakap tak pada Datuk Mahmud ni? Datuk Mahmud ni father of pediatric surgery di Malaysia. Sebagai pediatric surgeon, Datuk Mahmud is one of my mentors. Kalau dan kemasukan saya ke UKM pun, saya 12 tahun di KKM sebagai pakar perunding, dah jusasi masa tu dan dibawa ke UKM pun sebab saya mendengar nasihat Prof Emeritus Datuk Mahmud sebagai mentor. Saya bersetuju untuk bantu dalam penulisan ni kerana buku sejarah dia berbeza macam yang Prof Datin cakap tadi, kan ada perbezaan autobiografi, biografi, memoir untuk buku sejarah kita factual, ya. Kita kena ada flow di mana pembaca dia boleh rasa dia di dalam zaman tu, ya. Kita kena reduce emosi, ya, supaya dia tak bunyi macam perasaan penulis tu embed di dalam buku tersebut, ya. Dia perlu ada kenaikan kecemerlangan, ada bukti kecemerlangan, dan juga kalau yang tak cemerlang pun mesti di highlight dengan pengajaran, ya. Dan seterusnya mesti ada jaringan dan kolaborasi yang jelas, ya. Jadi saya melihat saya boleh membantu dalam aspek tersebut, ya, sebab dari asal buku sejarah ni ada feeling Datuk Mahmud dan sebagainya, ya, which is very nice. And I heard Usim ada buat biografi Datuk, ya.
Ya, autobiography.
Autobiography. Jadi saya terpaksa buat asingkan, ya. Dan saya nak pembaca merasa semangat membaca sejarah Fakulti Perubatan sebab dia menimbulkan semangat pada saya sendiri, ya. Kita start daripada kesusahan selepas peristiwa 13 Mei, kita nampak sebenarnya orang Melayu boleh bekerjasama, ya. Dan kita ada kepakaran-kepakaran yang kita sebelum ni mungkin rasa inferior, ya. Dan Datuk Amir dan ramai lagi, ya, kita punya Tun Abdul Razak, almarhum Tun Abdul Razak, ya, sendiri mengambil inisiatif untuk membina Universiti Kebangsaan Malaysia. Dan semua steps yang diambil untuk membina Fakulti Perubatan tu, kalau kita ahli Fakulti Perubatan baca, kita betul-betul dapat embed diri kita masa zaman tu dan melihat kesusahan, dan kita tak take things for granted masa sekarang ni. Walaupun kita ada hospital sendiri sekarang, ada pengurusan hospital dan fakulti, kalau kita baca sejarah tu, kita nak contribute equally kepada dua-dua institusi untuk meneruskan kemajuan Fakulti Perubatan. Ya, itu.
Okay, terima kasih. Dato', what were the challenges specifically that you wanted to highlight from the time you joined the faculty until 2007? What were some of the highlights, or maybe if not the highlights, they were perhaps downturns as you negotiate?
There were a lot of up and downs.
Yeah, up and downs.
But I must say, I concur with Dato' Amir that we thought it was an impossible task, because the number of Malay doctors at that time, in my class of 80, there were only 4 Malays. In the previous class of 64, about 8 Malays. And in the whole country, right, there were less than 4% of doctors who are Malays. And we want to establish a medical faculty with national language, Bahasa Melayu, as the medium of instruction. And that was a tall order. How are we going to teach? We don't have the technical terms in Malay to teach. So that's how we came to the compromise that we need to bring in the Indonesian, at least they speak some Malay. And then on top of that, we decided from the very beginning that we just cannot be too idealistic and nationalistic to have everything in Malay. We just can't do it. So we have to accept the fact that we have to do it in Bahasa Melayu and Bahasa Inggeris. And then, fortunately, our students in the first few years, Dato' Razak, you were still good in English, even though you went to Bahasa Sekolah Kebangsaan. The earlier generation of Malay students were still quite good in English. So we had English lecturers, English-speaking lecturers, and Indonesian. So it is almost like a bilingual. I think Tan Sri Prof. Sharifah, she was in the physiology department. So they taught in both languages. So the challenge was that, can we use Bahasa Melayu throughout the course? But we have to be very realistic, and we had a lot of people coming from overseas, especially in the clinical departments. There are so few specialists, especially among the Malays, so few specialists. But within a few years, we recruited a lot of Malays, and they became lecturers, and then with the help of people from overseas, we managed to do the course. But of course, most of the teaching had to be in English. Although we were severely criticized by Bangi, why are you all teaching in English? I said, if we teach in Malay, who will understand us in the hospital? The lingua franca of a hospital at that time is English. So there was a compromise that, when it comes to the clinical years, we will have to do in English, but without forgetting Malay. And we had a translation committee that translated technical terms into Malay. So that was one of the challenges that we faced. The lack of teaching staff, as well as the use of Bahasa.
So how did the first batch of students do? Because from you said yourself, there were like 4 students in your batch when you were doing your medical degree, and only 2 passed, and the other 2 took more time to finish. So how did the first batch of Malay students do? With medical education not instituted yet at that time, with Malay and English mixed in their teaching. Did they do well?
Of course they did well, because they were good students to start off with. It's just that they were in a school where Malay is used to teach. And the students were actually bilingual, and we had English courses for the students. So they were quite good as well in English.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they cannot follow the lectures given by some of the English-speaking lecturers in the first year and second year.
So what UKM did, what the faculty did, was to dismantle the myth that Malay students couldn't do medicine. That you busted the myth with
Of course, I think this is mentioned by Dato Amir Abbas. In the past, very few Malay became specialists. But when we sent overseas, and we were given the opportunities, equal opportunities overseas, there are so many Malays who came back with all the higher qualification in medicine and surgery.
Yes.
And they came back as lecturers.
Right.
So the myth was broken.
Yes,
That's what
so,
I think Dato Amir mentioned,
in literature we've got this book called The Myth of the Lazy Native.
That was it. That was it. There was an assumption, or more prejudice, or something. I'm not so sure.
Okay, maybe one last question, because we're running out of time. What advice would you give to a writer working on a historical book like yours? Dato, you start first.
Well, I think you get to get the historical facts as accurately as possible, and have got to have it verified. And better still, if you can get the original text, you have to refer to. I was fortunate that there was Dr. Amir Abbas' report. Then also we have a book written by Tan Sri Abdul Majid Ismail himself, where there's a lot of information there. And then, of course, there are other documents from the faculty. I hope the faculty keeps a record of the statistics and all the people who have served in university. So accurate data as far as possible.
Yes. Ya, saya tengok memang banyak data-data dalam buku Datuk ni. Buku Datuk.
Ya, banyak juga.
Yes. So that's okay. Sama soalan dengan untuk Prof Dayang, apa nasihat untuk bakal penulis? Ada ramai bakal penulis di sini yang mungkin ingin menulis satu naratif sejarah mengenai mungkin 2007 hingga 2022.
Ya, actually kita terima kasih Datin. Memang saya mulakan penulisan 2007 seterusnya. Saya rasa ini satu projek yang bagus. Saya rasa semua orang patut dan fakulti patut bantu bila ada penulisan sejarah. Amat penting kita buat ketika dekan-dekan tu masih ada lagi. Saya sangat terasa sekarang bila dah tak ada Prof Datuk Khalid, Khalid Yusof, bila Prof Datuk Khalid Kadir dalam kesihatan yang tidak baik, kita tak saya lah tidak ada kesempatan untuk menanya that portion yang kita telah tulis. Ada sebab kita tidak keluarkan, sebab tentu ada conflict of interest lah. Macam kalau Datuk Mahmud, dia tak mau menulis masa zaman Tan Sri Sharifah Naib Chancellor, bukan dia, this the conflict of interest people will query kan, dan saya faham tu, tapi banyak masa tu saya rasa kita mesti have a group of writers. It cannot be one person, it cannot be two person, it have to be a group of writers yang sama interest, yang boleh memeriksa fakta faktual ni, mendokumentkan kecemerlangan, dan juga kalau ada kejadian-kejadian yang tak diingini tu, ada pengajaran, kena ada pengajaran. Kita must be inclusive bila kita menulis buku ni. Kita tidak boleh sideline anyone, Dan akhirnya saya harap ada bantuan dalam bentuk penerbitan dari fakulti dan daripada universiti. Sebab saya ingat pada awal-awal dulu memang sukar, sebab buku-buku macam ni tidak dikira sebagai buku penyelidikan, Tapi it's very important, sebab kalau kita tak tahu sejarah dan journey itu, kita akan tak boleh buat perbandingan. Kadang-kadang kita macam sekarang ni, bukan sekarang, maksud bila ada satu agenda, katakan kita ingat kita the first, sebenarnya bila kita buka buku sejarah, alamak, Dato' Amir Abbas dan Dato' Mahmud dah buat dah, contohnya lah kan, and kita tengok apa-apa masalah yang mereka hadapi dulu, saya jadikan panduan. Yang saya harap ramai yang boleh jadikan panduan. Kalau kita buat sesuatu yang baru, human resource kena ada, apa penyertaan, kita cakap bahasa Melayu, sebenarnya yang membantu kita Fakulti Perubatan di awal tu semua daripada Australia, US, daripada benua Afrika pun ada, daripada Asia, So kita, the collaboration exceed just the people who speak in Malay, despite knowing that we want to highlight the language of Malay. Itu yang saya harap kita dapat lebih banyak lagi. Mungkin sejarah penubuhan hospital pakar kanak-kanak contohnya, So the group that can, and then their faces of success that we must highlight. Terima kasih Datin.
Saya mengalu-ngalukan manuskrip mengenai sejarah perubatan, Fakulti Perubatan untuk dihantar ke penerbit UKM. Okey, setakat ini saja sesi bedah buku pada hari ini. Saya ingin merakamkan.
Datin, boleh pihak saya dan Datuk ekspreskan rasa terima kasih kepada dekan fakulti, mantan dekan Fakulti Perubatan Prof Raja Effendi, kerana I think dia buka peluang pada kita untuk menerbitkan buku ini akhirnya, dan juga kepada Prof Halim kerana memberi peluang kita menjadi sebahagian daripada sambutan 50 tahun Fakulti Perubatan. Terima kasih banyak.
Okey, terima kasih. Ya, saya rasa ahli-ahli pengurusan tertinggi Fakulti Perubatan proaktif dalam pelbagai dimensi. So this is one of them. Sebab tidak banyak sebenarnya buku berkenaan sejarah yang telah dilakukan oleh fakulti-fakulti lain di UKM. Jadi saya merakamkan terima kasihlah kepada pengurusan Fakulti Perubatan untuk inisiatif ini. Okey, setakat ini saja sesi bedah buku pada hari ini. Saya ingin merakamkan setinggi-tinggi terima kasih kepada 4 pengarang yang diraikan pada hari ini, Prof Ima, Datuk Amir, Datuk Mahmud dan Prof Dayang. Sungguhnya buku mereka merakamkan sejarah penubuhan Fakulti Perubatan. Ada pahitnya tapi banyak manisnya. Saya doakan semoga Fakulti Perubatan terus cemerlang dalam misi dan visinya. Please join me in thanking all our 4 writers. Okey, buku-buku penerbit UKM boleh dibeli di Shopee. Bila pergi ke aplikasi Shopee, type penerbit UKM dan banyak buku kami ada dijual di sana. Jadi kami akan normally post dalam masa 5 hari. Terima kasih. Thank you for this opportunity.